This is the Blockchain 360 podcast. Blockchain 360 is a podcast of interviews and discussions about the current state and direction of blockchain. Thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time listening, then thank you for coming. The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at our website, blockchain360.co. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at Blockchain360. All links discussed today are included in the show notes.
Hi, my name is Brian Nielsen, and I'm the host for Blockchain 360. My guest today is Peter Anewalt, and he is with ULedger, and he's going to help us understand a little bit about what ULedger is and what they're doing. So, Pete, thanks for joining me here on Blockchain 360.
Thank you, Brian. My pleasure.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself. How is it you came to ULedger? What is your experience in blockchain?
So, personally, my background is in software and technology for many years. I won't tell you exactly how many, but it's been a lot of them. And
well, the gray hair gives it away, so it's more than 3 or 4.
Right. So, that's been my focus. Small technology startups. The nature of those is that they tend to grow big. They get acquired by bigger companies. At that point, for me, the fun is in the small, nimble company doing something new and interesting. So it becomes time for me to find something else, something new, some new company that's doing something cool. So that's what happened about on a year and a half ago now.
Right.
Wound up finding out about ULedger and what they were doing, and I didn't really know much about blockchain up until then, but it was fascinating. And the application of it, I knew of it in connection with Bitcoin, and this application of it was different than that, and it was intriguing. So for me, it was really kind of a natural fit. So it's been a fun ride ever since.
So you've been with ULedger for then 18 months?
Yeah,
Okay.
About that.
So tell me, what is ULedger? What is its unique selling proposition?
Right, so ULedger is a blockchain platform for the enterprise. And what we do is we've developed a solution that, in our opinion, leverages blockchain's fundamental feature, which is its ability to create an immutable audit trail, a history of data over time that can never be changed or tampered with, or questioned, really. There's a mathematical proof of that history of data. And our thesis, if you will, was that from an audit standpoint or a regulatory compliance standpoint, it's critical to have this. It's critical to have the ability to prove your data. And so, our focus is leveraging that and providing that in a way that enterprises and organizations and governments and what have you can really take advantage of. We have drawn a fairly distinct point of comparison between what we do and what public blockchains such as Bitcoin and Ethereum do.
And what is that distinction?
Those are public blockchains. They operate in a manner where all nodes on the network, they create an immutable history of data because there's a network of nodes that all share and corroborate content. But they do it in such a way that all those nodes have the exact data on them.
Right, all of them share the same data.
Right. Obviously, from an enterprise standpoint, a lot of that data is going to be considered proprietary, and you wouldn't want to share it. So from our standpoint, the need to keep data private was very important. However, you still need the public corroboration of that data. That's what gives it the immutability.
Right.
So we're a hybrid solution in that regard. We are private, the data is kept private, but
you do it on a distributed set of nodes.
Right. Right, and the cryptographic hash of data being entrusted to that private data store is shared with the rest of the network. That allows the rest of the network to validate to corroborate its content, basically.
So really, then you have a system of nodes that some are miners and the rest are validators.
Well, not really. There's no notion of mining exactly in our network.
So you have a blockchain with no mining at all. So what's doing the cryptographic hash, and how is that actually, that proof of concept, proof of work actually done?
So think about it like this. Each node, each blockchain, each customer of ULedger gets their own blockchain and is in turn a node on the network. And
so this is it's a public ULedger blockchain that all ULedger clients share.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I was a client, and I'm trying to understand this because the listeners are going to be asking these same questions.
Agreed.
if I was a client of ULedger and I had my servers, and ULedger gets another client, so I'm company A, company B, my servers are also going to help validate theirs.
Correct.
Okay, and conversely, theirs will validate my
Correct.
my transactions or whatever is being done.
Right.
So, what is the specific area again that ULedger actually covers? Well, I know it's an enterprise solution. So, how is that? What is the use case? I mean,
Right. So the specific problem being solved is data integrity, the ability to create a history of your data.
Right.
And as a company, there are many reasons why you might want to do that. And we found a number of use cases different by industry, where the need to do that is is relevant within that industry. So let me give you some examples. We have customers using it for storage of due diligence information.
so like
around
lawyers.
things- Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Around things like chain of title, real estate title.
Oh, sure, sure.
Research that's done. And once that work is done, storage of it on the blockchain becomes then a known good starting point for anyone who needs access to that information, or perhaps the next time a
Now, is
transaction
this like a
done on
government type solution? So, like
Well,
your
it's very
local
applicable to
county.
government.
Okay, so that's a. And by the way, we're at a conference. It's the Insight Exchange Networks blockchain conference here in Washington, D.C. So, the product you have is applicable to government. It can be deployed in private, and it's really more of a record management system.
Well, the point about deploying it in private, it doesn't make sense for a blockchain to be deployed in private, because then you don't have the immutability that blockchains can provide. So we would never recommend that a ULedger node be deployed completely in private without access to the network. That access to the network is critical for immutability. The thing about us,
I mean, do you have like a minimum number of nodes that actually have to be deployed for the ULedger blockchain platform to be considered, valid? I mean, for example, IOTA has a controller because they don't have enough systems out there, and at some point that controller will actually go away.
Yeah.
Is that the same for ULedger?
We're very different than architectures like that. We actually have the ability to create as many nodes as are needed.
Right, so
for
you scale.
immutability.
Sure.
Right, it can totally scale. The key thing about that is that the nodes themselves, there's no need to trust any particular entity, not even ULedger. It's the nodes themselves doing peer-to-peer collaboration, basically, of content within each of the individual blockchains.
So what is the consensus mechanism that ULedger actually uses?
Yep, we use something, it's patent pending, it's called cross-Merkleization. And it's this notion where
Explain
each
it
of
though,
those,
so everyone else I
You bet.
understand it,
You bet.
but please explain that.
It's this notion going back to the idea that each customer has their own blockchain or multiple blockchains if they wish. Those individual nodes, those blockchains themselves are talking amongst each other. And they're certifying each other's content. They're attesting to content at a point in time. So let's say I'm a law firm and you're a title company. You're certifying title information. I want my legal briefs certified. I'm not sharing the information with you, but I am sharing the cryptographic signature of the information with you. And likewise, you're doing that with me, with your data. So we're not exchanging data, but you are asking me to attest to the content of your data at this particular point in time.
So
which
how
I'm
are you
doing
hashing
without-
documents?
The nodes hash the documents.
Okay.
Or the hash can be provided to the node. If you don't ever want the node to see the actual document, you can hash
Just
it
give
yourself.
them the hash,
it's just
right.
the SHA-256 hashing algorithm.
Right, sure.
So the nodes do the hashing typically. They'll share only that hash with other nodes. The other nodes basically attest to that content at that point in time. They're doing it together collaboratively.
Right.
So it's not mining per se. It's not a complex algorithm. It's not trying to fit the latest Bitcoin transaction in the global state of all Bitcoin transactions that have ever been.
But there's the hashing and a validation
There
mechanism.
is.
The
Yes.
two components are actually built part of it.
Yes, but it's much lighter weight than, quote unquote mining as it pertains to Bitcoin and Ethereum.
So, in your mind, the highest and best use of it is really as a document registry. Is that right? Am I getting that?
As a registry of content, right.
So
The
it's
word
not
document-
it's not putting the documents into the blockchain, it's actually just putting the hashes into
That's
the
right.
blockchain to validate that.
creating an immutable audit trail of data transactions, which could
Okay.
be anything. They can be documents. They can be any discrete data element.
So tell me a
something
little
you'd wanna
bit more
create.
about ULedger. How long has it been around?
Yep, almost 3 years now. Our two founders, I'm not a founder, the founder of ULedger came out of Deloitte.
No, you
He
found
was-
them, so.
I did find them, that's true.
You're a founder in a different vein.
Right, sure. Our founder is Josh, he's our CEO. He came out of Deloitte, in the audit space in Deloitte, so he knew that industry very well. He spent some time with a startup that dabbled in blockchain and kind of put two and two together, realized the applicability of blockchain to audit, and set about trying to, commercialize that.
Sure.
Didn't know the technology, but was introduced to our CTO and co-founder, who's a brilliant blockchain mind out of Kosovo in Eastern Europe.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So the two of them met. They hit it off.
the math skills of the Eastern Europeans are
Yeah, it's
beyond
it's a
reproach.
hotbed of blockchain skill and technology for whatever reason. So those two hit it off. They started working on a prototype, and when I joined, they had prototyped basically the applicability of this concept to email. So the idea there is that you can take email, which is a ubiquitous communications mechanism, but it's very insecure, and it's text-based, and it's not legally, typically not legally usable as a discovery mechanism or something like that.
Well, the blockchain was originally created to actually secure email.
Yeah, and it's a perfect use case when you use it for that, right?
Right,
It's
right.
become synonymous with cryptocurrency, but
Right.
it's, that's much more in the transactional sort of certification of a data transaction.
Right,
that
more
we're
payment
focused
systems. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So out of that, we grew from that into a more general purpose notion of, well, it doesn't have to be email. It could be any type of data, any
Right.
type of data transaction. at all.
Sure.
So we evolved to that more general idea, which became the notion of data integrity.
Right.
And built an open standards API on top of our solution to allow it to be very easily accessed by companies with existing infrastructure. So the key thing was that blockchain by itself is complicated stuff, and under the hood ours is pretty complicated stuff. But from an enterprise standpoint, you want to be able to access that relatively easily. You don't want to rip and replace large parts of existing infrastructure to access the blockchain. So
Right.
that open API layer for us was key to its ability to be adopted by corporate environments.
Okay, so where is ULedger located?
We're based in Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho.
Yep.
Well, there you go.
Yep. Which I might have been hard pressed to put on a map 6 or so years ago. I'm from the Northeast myself, but
Where from the Northeast are you?
born and raised in the Philadelphia area.
Oh, okay.
And, much
Now
of
you're in
my
Boise.
Professional career in the Boston area, but I'm in Boise now, and I'm probably staying there.
Well, there you go.
It's a beautiful place.
I grew up out west. I grew up actually down in Salt Lake. So,
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with that mountain.
Yep.
It's a different zone of people to understand how they think. So yes,
sure
I can
is.
totally appreciate that.
Sure is.
So, where do you think the future is for ULedger? How do you project ULedger's growth? Where is that going to happen?
Good question. We have struggled with one thing, which is that our solution, as designed, is so broadly applicable, so applicable across industries, that it's common for companies to sort of latch onto a very narrow use case and build
Right,
that out
sure.
and get traction there, and then be able to move out from there. We've seen such good use of our technology in very many, different verticals, that we've been hesitant to sort of latch on to any one of those. So that's a double-edged sword. It makes us
Usable
it
by
makes
all,
us
but
usable
not-
everywhere, but not known for any one particular vertical.
Right,
so
sure.
that's been a challenge of ours. But
I forgot to ask, what's your role at ULedger?
Oh, I'm COO at ULedger.
Okay, so you're the Chief Operating Officer.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And how big is ULedger? How many staff?
Yeah, we're small. We're still startup. We're still, we're just grinding it out every day. There's 6 of us full time.
Okay.
And a range of consultants and part-timers that we leverage for marketing functions and some of our development and some of our advisory functions and things like that. We make extensive use of a network of professionals that we know. But just 6 of us full time.
Do you have plans for like an ICO?
We are conducting a U.S. SEC regulatory compliant token offering.
Okay.
Which is not an ICO exactly. We are following, we have adopted we've paraphrased what we've heard come out of the SEC, which is that there's no such thing as a utilities token. Everything that they've seen so far looks like a security, so our attitude is, great, it's a security, let's follow the rules that pertain to securities, and we're just going to operate within that model.
And when did you have plans for your ICO?
So we're actually, we have conducted a seed round token sale under SEC's Reg D, 506, how does that
whatever,
go?
it doesn't matter.
It's the rules that enable you to sell unregistered securities to accredited investors only.
Right, so for all the lawyers out there, not everyone has to remember all of these things.
Right.
But we just have to, fall in line behind what the regulations are.
Right. So we're sticking close to that set of regulations.
And how much are you looking to raise total?
We'd like to be in the neighborhood of $50 million total.
Okay.
And that will include a security token that provides not only the value of the value of the token will be based on, among other things, a dividend of company earnings. So
Sure.
it's tied to that, and it's a security token via that. Also warrants for that round, for the next round of
Sure.
token sales that we'll do.
Okay.
And then we'd like to be, we're still pursuing the process of being a public company so that we can do a fully public and compliant token sale by the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is part of the question period where I say, what do you see the future? What's your 3-year projection and what's your 10-year projection?
For us as a
blockchain?
company, or for
Both.
blockchain in the industry?
Both.
Or, well, so it's kind of a cliche at this conference anyway, but I'll still mention it. We feel that the notion of blockchain is not new, but it is something that companies, that the world is catching on to what its potential is.
Right.
And so it's been likened to, are we like the internet of the mid-90s? And I think in some ways that's true. Blockchain is going to be used in ways in which we have not yet thought of. And so it's going to be really interesting to watch that evolve. And so we're thrilled to be right in the middle of all that because it's super interesting. Where do we go as a company? I think there's growth in our future. I think we have a very good solution that works, like I mentioned, across a wide variety of industries and use cases. It scales very well. It solves a lot of the problems that the public blockchains that have been that are on the scene now, so have sort of exhibited in regards to handling of larger volumes of data and enterprise data. And I see it being widely adopted. We're obviously scrambling for customers now in the early days, but I see us growing very big, very large. And ultimately exiting.
The appropriate attitude.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, very optimistic.
All right, well, thank you, Pete. I want to thank you for joining me here on Blockchain 360.
Thank you, Brian.
That's it.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly. Have a question? Want us to interview someone specific? Wish to hear about a particular topic? Let us know. You can email podcast@blockchain360.co or tweet us on Twitter @blockchain360 or at our website blockchain360.co.